You can live without water and air, but without hope, what are you going to do after a point in time? We have to be that hope. We have to create that environment of hope that things will be better.
There are so many perspectives. Judgment doesn't really get you anywhere. Accept all the grays. I think that's a great learning from this conversation.
The definition of sexual abuse does not mean only penetrative, which is non-consensual or something. It could be molestation, it could be any kind of harassment, pulling their top down, doing anything. It could be lots and lots of things that have happened. The word abuse is still taken as sexual abuse, number one. And number two, it's taken as female. First is make it clear that sexual abuse is not related only to women. Boys, men have faced an equal amount, if not more or less, of sexual abuse. Primarily, 80 to 90% of the perpetrators are people who you know. And justice to the perpetrator doesn't heal their wounds. But now the perpetrator is your mother's brother. Now, what do you go and do? 7 to 8 out of 10 mothers, fathers, aunties, whoever have been approached, they're like, छोड़ना, क्या कर सकते हैं हम लोग? है, we क्या करें? So they will have to find ways to teach them how to cope. It's very difficult.
How do men process sexual abuse differently from women?
Unfortunately, to a boy who's been sexually abused, especially in our country, firstly, doesn't even know he's been abused. Secondly,
So, Dr. Rohan, we had a very brilliant conversation the first time round, and I'm really honored to have you back. We spoke about addiction largely the first time round. And this time, I want to address a different topic. I know you work with a lot of sex abuse victims and sex workers, and I would like to dive into the mental health of people on that spectrum. So, tell me, what are the most common psychological challenges sex workers face that society really never acknowledges?
so hi Ashna, thank you for having me back. It was a pleasure the last time around also. And what sex workers face specifically is not very different from what we all face. However, the trappings of their life are so dark from the time they've grown up. There's so much trauma that they've endured, that they've seen. They're so insecure when they're growing up. They've just seen primarily dark days. And when we talk about sex workers, we need to first segregate or delineate it into, are we talking about commercial sex workers like the ones we talk about? Shouldn't stereotype or anything, but it's the ones who are from different stratas of society. Because today the commercial sex worker, male, female, or gender neutral, is not what it used to be 30 years back or 40 years back, that you had a specific area of a particular city or town where you knew यहाँ पे sex workers रहेंगे or something of that sort. Now it's all on the internet. Everything is available to you. So each of them has a different story, and some of them are even in it voluntarily at some place, because I deal with a lot of them who've gotten into it by choice. Not a complete choice, but they've gotten into it by choice, and they feel that fine, there is decent amount of money to be made in this. There's a decent lifestyle that comes with it, and that's their choice. Of course, that's a very small population of the actual numbers, and the majority of them definitely are ones who've been forced into it and have no other option, and they've got blackmail and threats and everything looming around their head right from the time they are 4 years old and 5 years old, and they've seen their moms or aunts or whoever it is just go through the same thing, and they've tried desperately to find a way out, but it gets more and more difficult to do that. So psychological problems, of course, a lot of post-traumatic stress, depression, anxiety. You grow up in a little more anxious setting sometimes. However, there is some of them who are diametrically opposite, who become completely antisocial, who become completely disillusioned by life, society, and whatever it has to offer to you. They become very cold, calculative. They're like, धंधा है करके निकलो, चलो लाइफ में और भी कुछ करना है. They somehow manage to cope better than the ones who are the more sensitive ones. But at the end of the day, there's nothing in particular. So these are the usual things that they have.
Tell me, how does stigma and criminalization of this segment of people shape the mental health?
So, criminalization of what is perhaps the oldest profession in the world, okay, by far. Something which human beings thrive and seek all the time is pleasure and reward. As we were discussing, our last podcast was about addiction. So, the war against drugs, the war against workers, or the war against prostitution, whatever you want to call it, is very difficult to win. Sooner or later, governments or people or policy formers or reformers, They learn to align with the fact that it's
Going to exist.
correct. It's an evil, not evil. It's different perspective for everybody because they also have their own lives. They also are doing whatever they are doing. So the more you try to curb it, the more it grows. The more it grows in different ways and in ways and means which we can't even imagine, because you won't even know that you're sitting across a table with somebody who's a worker. And because they're absolutely looking the same, they're talking the same way, they're wearing the best of clothes. As I said, nowadays it's very difficult to identify. So criminalizing it, of course, it is a crime worldwide in most countries, except for a few that are frequented by a lot of people, potential customers from all around us only. So it's only going to help in a short span for some time, because punishment doesn't work always in such people who've seen punishment right from the time they're 3 years old, 4 years old.
Not
तो
only
क्या
that,
punish
is that
करोगे?
that demand supply thing. No, there is that much demand. There is that much.
Unlimited.
Yeah. So how do you stop something that has that much demand and that much supply to it?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And like you said, there's no particular place that you have to go, which used to be the case.
Exactly.
It is not looked down upon as it used to be. I think
100%.
somewhere it's becoming culturally accepted. It was known as a crime. I don't think people might say it is, but people still personally don't see it like that anymore.
Correct.
So I think the perception of it all has changed. But that doesn't change the fact that it is still, I think, would be absolutely horrifying for a human being to go through.
Absolutely.
Like you said, people might choose it. They might choose it for monetarily gaining a life that they may not see otherwise. They might see it as an easier route to having a good life. But I think ultimately it diminishes a person.
That's how they look at it. If they look at it as diminishing, then maybe. It is. For the majority, it definitely is. But now that's what they've chosen to do. So
Correct.
What do we do about it?
Do workers usually develop a unique coping mechanism to emotionally detach from their work? Or do you think eventually everyone is emotional and they give in?
So I just discussed this with you a while back as well regarding the coping mechanisms. So when we deal with sex workers, we work with NGOs where specifically there are NGOs that are developed specifically to help sex workers only, because nobody else wanted to do it. They all frowned upon it. And so when we go there, it's primarily like an outpatient department because the volume and the numbers are so high. And time span is you hardly get 2 hours and you've got to see 50, 60, 70 people, 80 people. Majority of them, depression, extreme anxiety. They hate the sight of men, some of them. They hate the smell of alcohol. They hate the smell of cannabis or whatever that's available over there. They're really scared, and they're any age group. It's supposed to be 18. It's actually criminal, but even in the para-criminal, it's supposed to be 18 and above at least, just to make it.
And it's not.
And you'll find 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds. It's heartbreaking to even sit over there and just have a chat with them at times. So depression, anxiety, a lot of phobia of darkness, of alone, claustrophobia, suffocating. Because not only is their life traumatic, even what they do, the kind of men that come. I'll be focusing on the women part most of the time because the men workers I don't deal with as much. So I'm not equipped to comment so much about it. So the kind of things that they have to endure with the man at that point in time also, and he's drunk or he's dirty, he's not willing to wear protection or something like that, and she's just been forced. And if he has more money, you have to last longer, and there's just so much that goes on. And most of the times there's no privacy, it's just a curtain. There's not even a secure door in certain places. So lots of phobia of closed spaces. The moment they see darkness, they feel like, "Arey baap re, aaj kuch hone wala hai, kya hone wala hai?" They have no weekly off, daily off, or some compensation over time, and whatever they earn, 40-50% goes to the word is pimp, dalal, whatever you want to call them. So it is problematic. It is. Many of them do become psychotic. Many of them do become paranoid. They do develop schizophrenia or something of that sort.
Serious issues.
Very serious. Many of them end up talking about wanting to go to alcohol or cannabis or any other substance abuse to find a recourse which will help them cope with it much better. That's what they end up doing. And then that's where we step in, then we start the counseling, or we start medication which is milder in nature, or we help them with legalities, law, and try to rehabilitate them, resuscitate them from where they are. but it's very difficult because their families are there. Even if I want to take somebody out and put them somewhere else in a proper facility, rehabilitate them, expose them to proper life, there's so much attachment. 20 years you've lived with somebody, you're like, जाने दो, छोड़ दो, क्या फर्क पड़ता है? It's very difficult. They do it, but it's difficult.
Absolutely. I think it's quite heartbreaking to even hear that someone as old as 15, where you're not even sure how life works. You're being abused in a certain way, and you're being told that this is the way to life and there is no other way, because they don't know any better.
Not at all.
And even probably for them, it's so hard to speak about it to a specialist like you, because some may have trust issues, right? Because in the end, they might see that a man has come to speak to me. What will he understand?
So initially, yes, the first few weeks or first few times that you went, firstly, it's just a once in a month thing. You don't get that much time. Very few male doctors go there actually. Because even the patient,
community
the client
prefers,
female doctors because they are already feeling violated. They don't like men so much. So they do take time to open up. They do have trust issues. They don't make eye contact. They are very, very shy initially. And then you have to make it a bit lighthearted with them. You start a bit. And the ones who are below the legal age or whatever, we always have a constable or somebody who is there or in our knowledge, or a lawyer who's working specifically for this, or the Human Rights Commission. We have all these people's representatives somewhere or the other in the vicinity when we are doing this kind of a camp or a OPD. And then we just have to refer them over there. And that's what it is. But they do have trust issues because they know कि चलो एक आदमी को तो बता दिया, अब वो मजाक उड़ाएगा, सच्ची भी कुछ फर्क पड़ेगा, पता नहीं क्या बोलेगा, इसको क्या फर्क पड़ता है, तो दिन के और 50 लोगों को देखेगा, बड़ी गाड़ी में आता है, ये करता है. So they don't connect with you initially. Then after the third, fourth, fifth time that they see that there is genuine intent and care from our side to actually help them out.
Correct.
We've shown them steps, we've shown them examples. The most common thing that they actually associate with is examples. If you give them an example that ये लड़की के साथ ऐसा हुआ था, जो वहाँ पे ऐसा हो रहा है उसके साथ, they'll be very happy. They'll be like, wow, chalo, okay, fine, I can see some hope, I can see something in front of my eyes to make me feel better. So that's where they are.
Can therapy ever really truly reach this community of society that can change the lens?
Of course, definitely. It is. It's a work in progress. We've come a long way in the last 10 years at least. I've been actively practicing 10, 15 years now in private public sectors. So it's become more and more spread awareness, destigmatize. Spread awareness, destigmatize. That's what our focus has become. Kahin bhi jao, let's have community-based therapists. You don't have to have an expert who's done 5 degrees from the UK or US or an MD or somebody else. And you don't. You just need somebody who knows basic tools, who's been equipped over a 6-month, 8-month course of training, who's well versed with their language, who's well versed with the way they think, the way they talk. Because somebody from an abroad foreign university will come and tell me 5 things which you like about yourself, and they're not going to tell you 5 things they like about themselves. They're like, "Mujhe kya malum? I don't know. I like myself also." No, that's how it is. So somebody who's more on the grassroots, ground level workers,
correct,
more social workers, they are very, very, very equipped to deal with this because they form a bond which is immediate. It's immediate. Some of them are from the same background also. Same past sometimes helps, same background. Somebody who's fought the system, come out of it, and now wants to help out. So as NGOs, we always try to identify such people who've been there, done that, and because they are the best examples. They give their biggest beacons of hope. Like, अरे इसने किया है तो फिर तो कोई बड़ी बात ही नहीं है. And then they narrate their story that you don't know what I have gone through when I was this happened to me and that happened to me. So they attach very fast with that. So,
tell me, how large are these communities? Because as a common man, we wouldn't know how large are these communities and how far back they exist.
As I said, they exist since the beginning of time.
No, I know.
There is absolutely no this thing about it. You go to any city. Okay? I myself have lived in 3-4 cities over the course of my life, primarily Bombay, but of course, and I have friends all over. Any place, whether it's in India, whether it's out of India, will always have a hub that is dedicated. Or 15 years back, they used to say, वहाँ पे रहते हैं वो लोग, उस एरिया में जाना नहीं है, it's very dangerous. And Bombay is Kamatipura used to be the area. Oh, KP के पास जाना नहीं चाहिए, वहाँ से कोई भी आता है तो you must never entertain them and this and that. And so it's always looked at as a taboo and a stigma and like, oh my God, what's there? So as I'm saying, every city has that particular city, town, कितना भी रहेगा, एक chunk रहता है. I can't give you numbers because India as a country where data collection is concerned, we are not that good.
Correct.
Our research levels are not that. We are not a research-driven country. We are changing that now. we're trying to get there where we're trying to see, we've got so much data, we've got just volume and volume and volume, but nobody is tabulating it. तो मैं पॉलिसी भी अगर मुझे बनाना है, कल मैं कल प्रधानमंत्री को बोलूँ कि भाई ये है, तो मुझे का नंबर तो दे, मुझे आंकड़े तो दे कि तू किस बात की पॉलिसी बनाना चाहता है. इट्स लाइक दैट. सो व्हाट डू आई से कि नहीं, अच्छा वो तो ईयर से पे बोल दिया मैंने, यहाँ पे 200 लोग ऐसा करते हैं, यहाँ पे 2 लाख ऐसा करते हैं, तो आई नीड नंबर्स. So with the advent of the Aadhaar card and lots of other identity proofs and all, now it's much easier to do that.
Yeah.
But people don't want to come out. And then they're like, क्या फर्क पड़ने वाला है, आज इतना 10 साल से इधर रह रहे और 10 साल रह लेंगे, कुछ फर्क नहीं पड़ता, यही हमारी लाइफ है. Some of them resign to it, and then they've got a lot of other pressures that day to day they have to provide. They can't leave their job, whatever their job is, and go and sit in front of a dharna or do something like that. They're like, आज का गया 200 रुपया, आज का 500 रुपया गया, तो खाना कहाँ से आएगा? It's like that. So it's difficult, but still, as data gets collected, as NGOs from the private sector, everybody is now pooling in their time and they are understanding that there's no point in this becoming very rich or very famous. Chalo, let's do something, and that culture is coming into the country now. It will, and it's already on its way, and it's quite a positive outlook that I have always. That once we get good data, then we can always put it up to higher authorities and then tell them these are reforms, and they're always open. Yeah, everybody is very open to doing all this. Yes, there are the odd ones out. You will find that one corrupt guy or one somebody who's harassing. वो तो अभी सब जगह पे यार, it's okay. We need not focus on that. The remaining 70-80% are really honest, who really want to make a change.
So I also know that you speak to abuse victims,
Correct.
people who've fallen prey to something like this, not people who are working in this sector.
Correct.
I think the psychological impact would be completely different to somebody who's a worker, for example. So can you explain what are the long psychological scars that leave on a person who's been sexually abused?
So let's first just make it clear that sexual abuse is not related only to women. Boys, men have faced
Of course.
an equal amount, if not more or less, of sexual abuse right through their childhood.
Yeah.
The definition of sexual abuse does not mean only penetrative, which is non-consensual or something. It could be it could be molestation, it could be any kind of harassment, it could be humiliating somebody by wetting them or just pulling their top down or doing anything. It could be lots and lots of things that have happened. Primarily, 80 to 90% of the perpetrators are people who you know. They are either somebody from your family, they are either somebody who knows you, or your uncles or aunts or
somebody who live in your community. People are aware of who you are.
Yes. So when we take a detailed psychological evaluation or a psychiatric history, when we're dealing with any new patient who comes to us, irrespective of what their problem is, whether they're not able to sleep, they've got an alcohol issue, they've got schizophrenia, anything, a part of the questioning has history of trauma, history of sexual abuse, history of childhood trauma of any sort, not only childhood, up to your 18, 20, 25, it could be at any age. Primarily, it happens at younger ages where it's not covered or brought out to the public. Once you're older and you've got more faculties to disclose it, then
Correct.
Of course it's there. Pre the age of 12, 13, 14, pre-puberty, it's very difficult to understand that you're being abused, number one.
Yeah, I think the child wouldn't understand.
इतना समझ नहीं आता उनको experimental लगता है, कभी-कभी लगता है क्या, I've had cases where Dadaji and Nanaji have indulged in it with a 6-year-old and an 8-year-old thing. It's horrific. It's disgusting, but it's true, and it's not a small number. It's a large number.
It happens.
It happens. Mamaji, Nanaji, anybody. There's a G at the end of it, means there's somebody from your family. 7, 8, 9-year-old, 10 years old who've still not attained puberty, and they just feel like ये तो मुझे मसाज कर रहे हैं या क्या कर रहे हैं, and the tone is like that. And once they hit puberty, 12, 14, 15, it sometimes happens with cousins, where you go with cousins as a family for a sleepover, or you're all sleeping on the roof today or something.
Yeah.
Not everybody lives in a nuclear family, except Bombay and the bigger metros. People still live in larger joint families. So a cousin has become 15, 16, 17, and he's hitting puberty, or the other way around. And you find a 13, 14-year-old cousin or your sister or something, and you just experiment, and you don't know that's abuse, not abuse. It is abuse at the end of the day.
Of course.
Because that girl or the boy is traumatized by it. Because now they're understanding that they are being violated beyond a point of what was nothing acceptable about it in any case. So now the next step is, kiske paas jaye? What do we do? Usually you go to your parents, which is your safe space, or you go to your sibling or whoever it is that you trust. But now the perpetrator is your mother's brother. Now what do you go and do?
Yeah.
Or your chacha's son or somebody like that. Bologe to, and this is the reality. I'm not making up stuff sitting over here. I have a database of people who've just gone through it like that, and they're like, till I was 18, 19. I told my mom. Mom was like,
Hmm.
one of the mums will take a stance or an initiative, but 8 out of 10, they won't be able to take it. In India, at least what I've dealt with, let's not extrapolate numbers to other people. This is what I can tell you from my experience. 7 to 8 out of 10 mothers, fathers, aunties, whoever have been approached, they're like, छोड़ना, क्या कर सकते हैं हम लोग, उससे दूर रहे. They of course brandish that person and just say that please next time don't come. They don't make a huge issue out of it. They're like, चाचा का family है, छोड़ दे उनको, खत्म कर, इससे दूर रहना, इससे दूर रहना. They sort it out at their level in whatever they can. But the victim feels really hurt that nobody actually took a stance for me when I could have.
Yeah,
had
it's like
something.
being unheard.
It is unheard. So the relationship with your mom gets strained. You have trust issues. You grow up depressed. You grow up anxious, or you find escape in smoking, drugs, cannabis, or whatever else that is there.
Or you can grow up very aggressive because you don't
or you
know.
become promiscuous. Then you just be like, अभी वो छोड़ो, वो भूलने के लिए मुझे दूसरा कोई distraction करना पड़ेगा, and then you. So there are lots of things that can come out of this, unfortunately. So difficult. Now we look at one perspective as the victim, definitely. Perpetrator तो बेकार है ही. I'm talking about the mother also. If the mother has been approached, she is in a difficult place when you are in a culturally bound place like India where we stay in, where these relationships matter. Maybe the brother was really a very helpful brother to her when she was growing up, and he must have looked after her, or whatever. There must be so
And
many
even
variables.
financial restrictions,
restrictions.
I've seen,
Correct.
I've heard where I've read so many cases. There's so many books on these cases where the family is financially dependent on these cousins and relatives, and then they say to their children, well, if you went through it, we can't do anything. We owe them so much money. Because of them, we are living in this house.
It's true.
Or your grandparents have supported us, your grandparents have done it, so what? I actually spoke to a lady, this is many years ago, where she was abused by her grandfather. And every time her mother said, you know who pays for your school, you know who pays for food, your grandfather, so keep quiet about it.
Very common.
And you're saying it's very common. To me, it was the most shocking thing I'd ever heard
They
back
have
in.
crooked teeth. They have teeth that are broken because the grandfather performs oral sex and that kind of stuff on a 9-year-old girl or a 10-year-old girl, and he's a 75-year-old man, and nobody to report to, nothing. So what you're saying is very true, and these are live examples. I know these kind
Yeah,
of
even
people.
I
know,
that person I
know.
actually
exactly.
met.
That's what I'm saying. Today that girl is 25 and she's touch wood doing well in whatever that she's doing, but she's saying, I can't, now the grandfather is 90 or whatever, but he's saying, even if he's dead to me, he's dead to me. He doesn't exist for me. So, hey, we kya kare? So they will have to find ways to teach them how to cope, but it's very difficult. That's one aspect of sexual abuse. The other one, of course, is the ones which are in relationships or where they are in abusive relationships from the time they are in a relationship, where they just don't have the same appetite, maybe, or the boy or the girl or whatever it is. Or
And
then
you don't have
the,
a say.
And then you have the office or the workplace sexual abuse, which is extremely bad. And thank God for the acts nowadays, the POSH and the POXO acts and all that have come out, and the HR departments are really, really working hard to enforce all this, because otherwise that kind of harassment is untold. The kind of pressure that you feel that you have to live up to some of your boss's expectation and look a certain way, dress a certain way, and sometimes to work your way up, do certain things, which is unbelievable, the pressure, because already काम का pressure है ही तुम्हारे ऊपर, performance का pressure, उसके ऊपर तुमको ये भी करना है बैठ के, और फिर तुमने नहीं किया तो you're already in a catch-22, because they already have some evidence that you've tried to do all this, and then they threaten you with your family, and it's a bad place to be in. It's a bad place to be in.
And so embarrassing for the rest of your life,
Very
right?
embarrassing.
Because you will say that, and you're told or you're looked at somebody who did all
Yes,
of this to
yes.
get ahead. And if you were to call them out, then everybody else looks down at you.
Correct. 90% of them are really just going through the struggle. There's only 10% of them actually have it in them to then come out of it, or they seek it, or they have the voice. They're like, "Bhad mein gaya, I'm going to go against this oppression or whatever that's going to be happening over there."
Yeah, mental
And
strength is not so
nahi
common
kar sakte.
anyway.
There's so much at stake for them. So thank God for these acts. Of course, looking at it from a perspective of a, now let's just consider the male to be the perpetrator, though it's not always. I'm saying it's 60-40. But the POXO and the POSH acts are so strict that even a complaint will have to have a complete inquiry, and then you have to go straight into the depths. Maybe the FIR has to be registered, and God knows there's so much to it. It is misused also. The
It would
downside to
be.
it is. But still, I feel that it's okay. 90-10 is okay यार. 10% जो है वो है, अभी क्या कर लेंगे, क्योंकि इतने साल भुगतना पड़ा है उन लोग को to just be able to have a free voice where anonymously they can just go and just lodge a complaint about somebody.
Correct.
So it's okay. They do, sometimes it is abuse, this power that is there, but that's okay, because I know people who are on the other side of the law also then, at that point of time, who've been falsely accused, who've been falsely blamed. And then that's merit of the case. It's good to see nowadays the judgments passed where it is like, just because I promised you marriage, I had sex with you and didn't marry you, doesn't tantamount to sexual abuse. That we go over a relationship, we did it, it's okay now, we're not together anymore.
Yeah, I actually learned that very recently from one of my guests, where she's a criminal lawyer, and I had no idea that somebody was accused of because he had a live-in girlfriend, and then on the premise of marriage, probably on the promise of marriage, and it didn't happen.
Correct.
And then ultimately she had put a case on him
Very
for
common.
rape. And you are saying it's common. I was baffled. I said, how is it even possible? These are educated professionals who are living with their boyfriends openly and then ultimately blaming them for rape, which is also not, it's crazy.
Very common. That's what I'm saying. So the whole thing, that's how it is. But there's a lot of that has got to do with sometimes the parents getting involved or the families getting involved and being like, अब इसका नाम खराब होगा, उससे अच्छा है कि हम ये रास्ता अपनाएं ये करने के लिए. But then evidence is there. You have evidence. You've got evidence. As you said, 3 साल से साथ में रह रहे हो, अभी अचानक तुम बोल रही हो कैसा हो रहा है. So as I said, it can be misused, this law, but now what to do? It's still better to be safe than sorry.
How do men process sexual abuse differently from women from a young age? Because I'm sure, we are emotionally wired differently as species.
Definitely.
And the same trauma that happens to a boy or happens to a girl, I'm sure it's going to be processed very differently. Can you explain that?
Unfortunately, the whole society is still not yet so accepting of the LGBT community still, despite so much of advance and so much of knowledge everywhere. So a boy who's been sexually abused, especially in our country, firstly, doesn't even know he's been abused. Secondly, it's a direct hit on his masculinity as it is perceived by the general public, like, oh my God, how will I ever say this? Log kya bolenge, kya sochenge? Because everywhere you see there's only hyper masculine, testosterone driven superheroes and movie stars and cricketers, and our icons and heroes are only people who are, will not find an icon who is not like that. It's very difficult to find somebody like that. That's what majority of the public likes, and you've grown up watching all this. So to even process it, firstly, understand that I've been abused is a very big challenge. After that, if they go ahead and say it to somebody, they're like, अब मैं किसी को बोलूँगा तो ये मुझे नामर्द समझेंगे या सोचेंगे कि मैं काबिल नहीं हूँ. How did I let this happen? What is this? You're not good enough to take on the family business anymore or to get married. हमारी नाक कट. And these are real things. These are not just Hindi serials or movies में जो दिखाते हैं. ये actually होता है ऐसा कि they get embarrassed that, oh my God, now what do we do? Our son was this. But instead of helping and easing the pressure on the boy, they are more worried about this. This is not every time, but this is what usually comes to us, because जो ease कर देते वो हमारे पास आते नहीं है. हमारे पास जो आते वो तकलीफ वाले आते बेचारे. So that's how it is. So it shatters their confidence. It makes them very, very aloof, withdrawn. They become very cut off from society. They lose their innate reflexes. They just become very, very quiet. They'll lose interest. Depression के signs आते हैं. They become very anxious around people. And anything that reminds them of the abuse, the same place, the same smell, the same area, or whatever it is, they consciously avoid it. And they try to make do with small, short steps. So therapy is very important in such people. It does help them out, but it has to be a little more long-standing, because उनको process करने में, as you said, genetically different है, culturally different है. So it does take, and it takes an equal toll. It's not that लड़का है तो कुछ कम toll हुआ है या कुछ ज़्यादा हुआ है. It takes an equal toll on their mental health.
Yeah, because people so commonly say, right, oh, you have a son, you don't have a daughter, you can be so carefree.
Correct.
Carefree about what?
Correct.
Anybody can be abused. Anybody has to be careful. You have to take care of both, whether it's a daughter or a son. But people still have that mentality that a girl you have to be very careful with, boy you can be easy about. But you don't know there's so much going on, and you have to be so careful also, because the world is evil, right? There is enough evil in the world. I would say that. There's enough evil in the world. There is enough bad, there's enough good. Now, to protect your own children, to protect your own loved ones from whatever may be, there is no gender.
Absolutely.
It can happen to anybody. But I think that bias still exists.
100%. 100%. Because the word abuse is still taken as abuse, number one. And number two, it's taken as female abuse. It's just taken as, is that वो बन गया है वो भी.
हाँ,
stereotype जैसा हो गया है वो. I hope वो abuse कम हो जाए rather than we change our mindset के लड़कों को भी होता है that abuse should only reduce on its own firstly. That is more
Yeah.
important than just us understanding. But yeah, what you're saying is right.
Absolutely. Do you think healing from sexual abuse ever means forgetting? Or do you think it's more like coping mechanisms where you learn to live with it and eventually forget about it?
Very easy to say from a therapist or somebody who's not had it that forgive, forget, move on, let's live life the way it is, learn to align with it, this, that, ये सब जो है. They are facts, but they're very difficult to implement. Very, very, very difficult when you've got visual, pictographic memories of that trauma every time. As I said, what is PTSD? What is post-traumatic stress? That you undergone a trauma, and despite it being more than 6, 8, 10, 15, 20 months, maybe years, still anything about that particular incident
Can trigger you.
that can trigger you into excessive bouts of anxiety, panic, tremors, sweating, cold sweats, chest tightness, breathlessness. You just name it, and any sign of anxiety can come. You can't sleep. You get up with nightmares. You get up flushed completely. Some people pee the bed or they do whatever it is. So as I said, it could be anything. It could just be the same cigarette brand देख लिया या किसी की वो चूड़ी देख ली या किसी का कहीं पे देख लिया कि वो इसका लुक अलग था या हमने ये पिक्चर देखते हो तो ऐसा हुआ था तो anything can just bring that entire flashback. So you have to gradually teach them relaxation techniques, coping mechanisms. Coping mechanisms are easy to say, very difficult to implement.
Absolutely.
You can tell them learn to let go. बोलेंगे भाई वो ही तो नहीं आता है. Teach me how to let go. So at what level then?
Yeah, if someone's had like a burn incident, for example, in the kitchen, probably wouldn't want to go back to the kitchen again.
Correct.
You know, let's say they've had a very bad incident.
Correct.
It's like that.
Yeah.
When somebody has such a bad, they don't.
And multiplied by 10.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's so traumatic that you don't know, you start to question your identity.
Correct.
And I'm sure that's what happens.
100%. And justice to the perpetrator doesn't heal their wounds. It's a very big misconception that अच्छा अभी उसको सजा मिल गई वो रेपिस्ट को या उसका जो भी था वो कि उसको अभी 10 साल मिल गया है 20 साल मिल गया है फांसी चढ़ गई है. It doesn't heal the wounds that are so raw and so fresh for years because it's like अच्छा ठीक है उसको तो हो गया लेकिन I'm still not feeling the support and whatever it is.
How can you feel yourself again, right? You can't go back to before the incident.
It's traumatizing. It is.
I think, you know, what you said, I think it applies to everything. Today, if you wrong me, even something small, like you say sorry, but that feeling doesn't go away just by the sorry. I'll have to process it. I'll have to actually make an effort to get over it. To think that, yes, if, like you said, the perpetrator is punished, is going to be sufficient. It isn't. I think therapy, I would say, would really go a long way.
Altogether. Everything has to work together.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
So I know that you also work with prisoners and you work with prisoners and rehabilitation. It's crazy how you have all these different departments and aspects that you work on. And it's absolutely fascinating to me. So let's speak about that. What are the mental health common issues for prisoners?
So if you've noticed the entire spectrum from the abuser to the abused, I have to see both of them in the span of a week, sometimes in the span of a month. And your entire mindset now over there is a totally different mindset. One, you can't sympathize, you can't live with that guilt and be regretful of, oh, this, that. Initially, when I used to work with prisoners, yes, there was a lot of apprehension from my family and everybody else that वहाँ पे डर के जाना, संभाल के जाना, ये करना, वो करना, क्या हो जाएगा? Because everybody's conception of it is only from media. Except for the ones who've been inside. Otherwise,
that's true. We only know it from movies and shows. We don't know.
Otherwise, and उसमें तो इतना exaggerated nonsense दिखाते हैं वो लोग कि भाई हर जन male, and I used to work in an all male prison only. There's no females over there. So their one conception is that everybody is gay. Everybody's just out to just have anal sex, and they've all got hidden knives and nails somewhere here and there, and they just want to slash wrists and they're very rude and abusive. It's not like that at all. No, it's not some dream world inside either, but it's not like that at all. Where that's the only thing that happens. Firstly, it's just too crowded. In a capacity of say 800 to 1,000 people, there are always 2,500, 3,000 prisoners in that same place.
God.
Yeah, so it's always 2x to 3x. That itself makes it so difficult to do anything. You sleep on a floor, say about 1,000 square feet ka room, there are about 25 people sleeping, 25, 30 people, 2 toilets or 1 toilet available. In the night, you get up to pee, your place is gone. Somebody else is sleeping in your place, so you'll be now relegated to sitting somewhere there and then coming back there. So these are, of course, that's why it's a prison at the end of it. So when you deal with them, the mindset has to be a little different in that you can't take everybody at face value. Yes, there are lots of people out there who want to narrate their stories. over my experience of nearly 10 years of working in such places, that I'm not a judge. They do come to you thinking you're a judge, but anybody who's giving them a patient hearing, they think that मेरी कहानी सुनाना तो पड़ेगा इनको. And who's stopping them? It's their perspective
Yeah.
of whatever happened at that point in
It
time.
could be
So
like seeking validation also.
it is. And they always like, अरे मेरा तो ये गलत हो गया, मेरा तो वो गलत हो गया. I've dealt with terrorists who've done the most heinous of things, and some of them are just like, yeah, it's done. I was in a different space. It happened. This, that. They are on death row, or they are going to be incarcerated for life, or whatever it is. But they're like, that's how they talk. And they come with issues of, majority of people in the prisons, of course, have issues with sleep. Majority of them have issues with substance withdrawal, because most of them are substance users outside, and when they come in, suddenly there's no substance available except for BD or cigarettes, that also depending. So they are all in withdrawal, they can't sleep, they get seizures, and it's a problematic place. Depression, yes, because as I said, 20-30% of them wrongfully just put in, because the prison that I was working in was not a one in which there were convicts. There were under trials over there. So the trial was still going on.
Right.
So you're innocent till you're proven guilty. It's the other way around. You're guilty till you're given your bail or you're let out or whatever it is. So some of them who've been wrongfully put in or have come in because of whatever issues, then they do have the depression. They have anxiety. They can't sleep. They want longing to meet their family, their children, or whatever it is. And environment is not fun or anything like that. Everybody is quite impatient. They tend to become a little rude sometimes. So it's not fun to be inside.
How does isolation and loss of identity affect a prisoner's sense of self?
When you say loss of identity, it's a very personal thing that they undergo at that point in time. Depends on what the crime was, how they've been treated in the prison, what the reasons were that they've come over there. Many of them don't feel that unless they've been incarcerated a really long time. The ones I worked with were usually 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. There were the ones who were there for 7, 8, 10 years also. But then they form the new identity inside. So when they come back out is when they feel like, oh, I've lost my coterie of good people who were there inside, who I was working with and who I was friendly with, and they form a new circle inside, a new life develops. And when they come outside, of course, they are met with stares and frowns and smirks or whatever it is initially by people. Of course, except for your close people who stood by you or who understood what you went through, whatever it was. So it does affect them. It takes a lot of time to come out of that, but it's not as bad. It's not as bad.
It's not.
They do learn to deal with it and cope with it, because specifically in India, now we deal with it. As I said, our exposure to convicts in this and that is more from Western movies and all.
That's also
where they show के अब तो कहीं नौकरी नहीं मिलेगा, कुछ नहीं होगा. इंडिया में आधे लोगों को मालूम भी नहीं है कहाँ जाके आया है, पता नहीं क्या करके आया है, किसी को पता नहीं है. नौकरी मिलो, चलो पेट भरना है हमको, आगे बढ़ो. So it's a more practical approach over here that is there. So it's not as bad.
Yeah, I would imagine also because of our population, right? Where who keeps track of all the...
They do, but difficult to
trace
on that. Correct.
And is there a way to break this cycle of violence and crime through, do you think, mental health interventions?
Mental health interventions are extremely important at every stage where you're dealing with somebody who's violent or a criminal or aggressive. Because we need to understand their mindset. We need to be aware that, so when I work over there, now, as I said, we are a data heavy country, but we don't have the data. We just have the volume. So what happens is 50% of them have some sort of psychosis, some sort, where they are delusional or they are paranoid or they are suspicious. It could be genetic, it could be the hereditary version of schizophrenia, or it could be cannabis-induced or alcohol-induced or something like that. Majority, 40-50% is a huge number, because I have that data with me. At wherever I used to work. The records are maintained over there. So the moment you start them on certain antipsychotics, you'll see a completely different person. You'll be like, wow, he's such a nice person. But he has done that crime when he was in that phase where he was delusional about whatever was going on with him. So a detailed history, awareness, majority of the time somebody who's untreated tends to come back to the prison again and again and again, because he goes out. It is like that only. It is the same, that they don't know where to draw a line. Society doesn't understand them. They're like, ye to pagal hai, isko hata do, jail mein acha tha. I have so many cases in the prison where the families don't want to take them back. They've had their bail, they've had everything. So these people deliberately then go and do something petty and they come back inside. They're like, at least now they've formed a new family inside and they're more comfortable.
Yes, like a stable home.
It is like a stable home inside at some level. So that's also very common. So, but psychiatric intervention at any stage, as long as you just are able to identify, okay, fine, you're not born a rapist or a murderer, but
Yeah.
you do become
But
with
don't you
experiences.
think, like, if this education is given at a much earlier stage, like when girls and boys are 17, 18, 16 in schools, early
Younger.
college, a lot of talks are given, it might shape their perspective to probably act differently.
You're right. At a younger age, 17, 18 तो बहुत late हो गया. By the time you're 9, 10, 11, 12, you can start inculcating all this. Now, all this has been done in Western countries. In the more developed countries, all this is already happening. But the numbers are still the same. The percentage numbers. Population तो हमारा सबसे ज़्यादा है, तो ऑफकोर्स यहाँ नंबर ज़्यादा रहेंगे, बट परसेंटेज वाइज आप देखोगे इतना फर्क नहीं है, क्योंकि आइडेंटिफाई नहीं कर पा रहे लोग कि ये आगे जाके ही इज गोइंग टू बिकम समबडी लाइक दिस, बिकॉज इट वाज जस्ट ओ ही इज एन ऑड गाय और शी इज एन ऑड काइंड ऑफ पर्सन. ये थोड़ा विचित्र है. टिल दे डोंट गो एंड शूट समबडी. नाउ देयर गन वायलेंस वेरी हाई बिकॉज ऑफ द एक्सेसिबिलिटी ऑफ गन्स. Here it is more to do with molestation or rape or chain snatching, whatever that is there. So signs and symptoms are there, but people to identify those are only, इंडिया में 20,000 50,000 लोग हैं जो ये आइडेंटिफाई कर पाएंगे. तुम 100 150 करोड़ में अगर 15,000 लोगों को छोड़ दोगे देखने, तो कैसे हो पाएगा? वो हो ही नहीं पाएगा, और किसी को करना भी नहीं, बिकॉज आफ्टर अ पॉइंट, आफ्टर द सेकंड और थर्ड मिसडिमीनर, दे आर लाइक दे आर बेटर ऑफ इन जेल ओनली. छोड़ दो. दैट्स द एटीट्यूड दैट्स बिकम. Whereas rather, and of course not intervention at that stage, but at least earlier, what you're saying, just to pick up certain signs as a school teacher,
Yeah.
which is the commonest person, a college
Correct.
teacher,
Who
or
sees you for that many hours.
every day,
Yeah.
or your headmistress, or if you're staying in a hostel, or somebody in the community says कि ये लड़का देख अभी से ही चोरी कर रहा है, 14 साल का है, ये कर रहा है, वो कर रहा है, कुछ तो गड़बड़ है, ये लड़की अभी से ऐसा ऐसा कुछ कर रही है. Let's just, the moment you say psychiatrist बोलेंगे मेरी बेटी पागल नहीं है, मत लेके जाओ. Whoever, whichever community they belong to, whatever status, they'll be like, नहीं नहीं मेरी बेटी. But you have to be like, नहीं नहीं इसको सिर्फ थोड़ी मदद की ज़रूरत है, जहाँ पे उसको कुछ बेहतरीन काम सिखा सके, जहाँ उसका हम लोग चाह सके कि वो कुछ अच्छा कर सके अपनी लाइफ का, या कुछ ऐसा वैसा करके. You have to just somewhere or the other convince them to believe that okay fine, that they need help, and it makes a big difference.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I think if you start that watchful behavior from a younger age,
Definitely.
it can prevent a lot of
Definitely,
things.
but you have to be aware.
Yeah, and if you start correcting, even family members don't correct, right? You'll just say that relative's kid is odd, hits, punches, and then you ignore it, and you're like, we can't say anything.
Some of them glorify it. Some of them तो ignore it, but many glorified. अरे मेरा बेटा तो ऐसा करता है, देख अभी से ये कर रहा है, वो कर रहा है, गाड़ी ऐसे चलाता है, 15 साल का है. And then you read in the papers that किसी का 16-year-old driving that Audi went and killed somebody, and that fellow driving the Porsche did that wherever in Pune. And the trauma is real, because somebody lost their mother, somebody lost their child, in that somebody's elated sense of self that my son can drive at 160 when he's 16 years old. What's the big deal in that? Nothing. What did you achieve?
That's the environment, no? If your
Yeah.
parents are only saying that it's such an achievement
Correct.
to act out.
That's what I said.
So acting out, I just feel like acting out when your teachers, colleagues, anyone can see it, communities, neighbors. I just think like it can be dealt much earlier than
Definitely.
actually a person becoming a criminal
Definitely.
out of it
Definitely.
later.
Definitely.
And by a criminal, I don't mean like how the movies show it.
Yeah.
Anything is crime,
Absolutely.
right? Which is out of the ordinary.
Absolutely.
So, how do people living on society's margins, sex workers, prisoners, victims of abuse, cultivate resilience, do you feel?
Very difficult, no? Very, very, very difficult for them to have resilience, because they are ostracized from the time that they are born, or from the time they've been incarcerated, that ये तो गया ही है. And there's a trial by media, trial by family, trial by everybody before the actual trial happens, and by then you're already brandished and you're pushed away. So, of course, the trauma is the most for the sex worker family, because she's born in that family, that girl. She knows no better. She's just born there. She's grown up there. She's lived that life. She's seen her mother or her aunt or her elder sister just being abused every day and exploited beyond what is humanly possible. That is very difficult. And the same people who talk ill about it are the same people who visit. It's so sad.
Yeah.
That's the irony of the entire thing. That you will not know if some uncle of yours goes there, but he sits on his high chair in the end of the day and like, छी ये लोग इतने गंदे हैं, इनको यहाँ नहीं आना चाहिए, वहाँ नहीं. But 2 months later, he's on a trip to Bangkok, or he's on a trip to Goa, wherever it is, or whatever he's doing. And then he's doing the same thing. Chi and Chuchu all goes out of the window then. So it's so sad. And they're not getting the opportunities then. So now what we are trying to do is create awareness, give the opportunities. I won't say decriminalize it now, that's not in my hands to make it a crime or not a crime, that's the largest chunk of society develop, but at least give them an equal and fair opportunity to excel in other aspects also. आने दो ना, पढ़ने दो ना, कॉलेज में जाने दो ना, सब करने दो. डोंट बी लाइक तू उनकी बेटी है तो छी वो तो ऐसे ही लोग हैं, वैसे लोग. That's same thing applies to prisoners and their children or their family members also. It does apply to that. So
Yeah.
Victims of sexual abuse still have got more acceptance nowadays, at least, because that also 15 years back बोले अभी से शादी कौन करेगा और इससे वो कौन करेगा और
Oh,
वो सब
yeah,
तो चले गए,
absolutely.
थैंक गॉड, वो सब इतना नहीं है अर्बन प्लेसेस में. आप जितना रूरल जाओगे ये सब वापस उभर के आता ही है कि देयर इट इज लाइक अ थिंग, खत्म होगी बात. नो मोर अ वर्जिन, मतलब नाउ यू कैन नॉट मैरी. इट स्टिल हैपेंस, इट्स सो सैड बट इट स्टिल हैपेंस. व्हाट टू डू? So they have a lot of resilience. Many of them wilt under the pressure. So many suicides that you hear about. So many unaccounted, which you won't even know that they've done. They've just brush it off as कुछ तो भी हो गया, वो गिर गई इधर से, वैसा वैसे कौन गिरता है यार?
Or people
वो
will
तो
just say she was sick.
sick and this and that. That's what I'm
Suddenly
saying. Or they
passed
are
away.
shipped away to some other place, to some other relative's place, which is geographically so far away, like from Assam to Delhi or from somewhere down here, there. So very difficult then to identify.
Tell me about one of your most successful stories that after seeking therapy, somebody who's been sexually abused or somebody who went through this kind of trauma came out, shining bright.
So there's not one. There are multiple. Multiple. That's why we still go ahead and do our jobs every day, because we know that that one person is more important who's actually rehabilitated and come out of it than the others who are still like ये तो टाइम पास करने आता है, डॉक्टर से गोली लिख के जाता है, नींद की गोली देता है, डिप्रेशन. ठीक है, वो तो करना ही पड़ता है, वो भी करना पड़ता है. बट दैट वन स्टोरी दैट कम्स आउट और द अदर वन हू कम्स आउट and you see that they're actually, then they become so attached to you also. You also feel like, you take it personally, you feel like, wow, yaar, I have actually been a small part of this person's life
Journey,
in
yeah.
getting them out of this whole
Of
place.
course.
So many cases where they've been abused. There was a girl who was 15 or 14 years old. We used to see her in one of these sexual abuse camps that I used to do. And imagine the coincidence that in the prison, I found a father. The father was in for sexually abusing the daughter. So both of them started coming to me. I used to see him over there, and he used to be like, because she was talking rubbish about religion and she was not following what's supposed to be followed, and she used to see whatever social media and do whatever at the age of 14, 15, I had to teach her a lesson. So I only went ahead and taught her what it is. So we were like, taught her. So everybody was shocked, the therapist sitting next to me and all. What do you mean by taught? He's saying, I had to have physical intercourse with her and teach her that at this age, this is what you will get. And then I found it nice, so I did it more. And so it was very disturbing to hear it, the way he was talking so relaxed and nonchalantly, that, acha, is that? We were like, then we realized that this man, then we did a detailed assessment, and it did come out that he's got deep-rooted issues of personality and psychosis, and at some level hypersexual, nymphomaniac, bipolar behavior also was there and all. Spoke to the daughter. Daughter said, I just liked one guy. I was 14 and a half, 15 at that time, she said. I liked one guy, so I was chatting. होते रहता है वो Instagram पे इधर. He found out and he said, अब मैं तेरे को सबक सिखाता हूँ. And he सबक सिखाऊड in front of the mother, in front of the other brother, in that house, because they were not well off. They were staying in a kholi. And for her to, then she was the one who had to go to the police and file a complaint, because the mother refused to do it.
Yeah.
She only went with the help of that boy. And she said, we have to go and file a complaint. And the police, of course, did it. And he to confessed and he agreed to it. No, I don't know where he is. But this girl today is about 21, 22. And she is eternally thankful to us, of course, that we gave her the strength of telling her, don't worry. We had to talk to the mother over multiple sessions, because initially she thought we were conniving and aspiring, helping the daughter split the family up, and she's like, तुमको तो run away boy and this and that. We said, नहीं हमको ऐसा, हमको क्या मिलने वाला है, हमको क्या करना है, but you have to come to terms with the fact. नहीं but मेरा पति तो कमाता था, मेरा पति सब करता था, आपने उसको ही जेल में डलवा दिया, ऐसा हो गया. बोले हमने कुछ नहीं किया है भाई, वो तो लॉ ने जो करना है वो कर दिया है, और उसने खुद ही बोला है. It's not that we have brought out some confession or something. So today she's on the verge of completing her BBA, then she wants to do her MBA. And she set her sights on starting her digital marketing career as an entrepreneur, and extremely talented girl, superb. We are trying to arrange, because she's so brilliant, she's actually genuinely brilliant, we're trying to arrange scholarships and see she can be sent somewhere to do a machine learning or AI course or whatever she likes, all that. हमारे लिए अभी it's not in ours, but we have to learn whatever it is. So we've taken a promise from that once you learn, you teach us also all this. So she's no more with that boy. That boy हो गया, वो भी जो भी था, वो रिलेशनशिप था उस टाइम पे, वो रिलेशनशिप था भी नहीं है. She was 14 and a half, 6-7 years back. Yeah, infatuated. He was 17, 18. They did have some later, whatever. He's out of the picture, but now she's doing very well. The mother has been rehabilitated, counseled, explained. initially the mother and son did not talk to her. They were like, how dare you send our father? So what if he did this and that? Today they've come around a bit and they're still not very, but she doesn't stay with them. She stays in a separate place, which is a hostel
I think
specifically
that
like
it's
this. Yeah,
great she
thank
stays in
God.
a
That's what I'm
separate
saying.
space
She's saying, I
because
don't feel comfortable there with my mother in the same
not only
society.
that, like her mindset is probably far more developed, right?
Definitely.
They are so primitive to think it's okay
Definitely. It's okay.
if he did it. Like it's for me, I don't know, my
Understand.
yeah, you get
Exactly.
angry that how do these people still exist who think it's still okay? So yeah, that's what I told you right at the beginning, that I think finance has a lot to do with this. I think financial power has a lot to do with it. So I feel wherever the financial power lies, people try to abuse that power.
Correct.
And it can be in this way.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think I've read many cases where the relatives who are more financially powerful will do it to the relatives who aren't, and they know that they won't be able to say anything back.
So
But
the point of sexual abuse, especially not proper, that the sexual pleasure in that is not as much as it is more of a dominance, power, authority thing. It is more of that than some sexual pleasure at that point in time. Any of the heinous ones that we've read about, that we've heard of, all of them involve 2-3 men sometimes, or the
Just
worst
power.
one. That's what I'm saying. It's just about submission. The submission. That how do I get this girl to submit to the fact that I am more superior to her, and what greater way than doing it than by just
forcing.
yeah.
What role does hope play in survival?
Most you have to have hope. Without hope, what are you going to do? You can live without water and air, yeah, but without hope, what are you going to do after a point in time?
But then what happens when all hope is stripped away, right? Because that's what they feel in their in their life. There's no hope left.
Definitely. So the initial 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, sometimes 2 years, we have to be that hope. We have to create that environment of hope that things will be better. And as I said, showing them examples of people who've been there, done that, and today are successful in their own way, that they're at least away from this, so they're they're doing well. Correct. The same thing applies to prisoners also. That people who've done the crime, who accepted, they've had their tenure, they've done the duty, they're willing to change. The ones who are willing to change, you have to give them hope. You can't just say, "तू तो वो ये था और तूने ऐसा कर दिया, अब तो तेरे को कुछ नहीं होगा. You deserve to rot in hell." And who are we to decide at the end of the day?
You must have that much forgiveness and understanding in you, right, to be able to work with people from all these walks of life.
I don't have to forgive them or forget them. Fortunately,
no, but then as humans, we have bias, we have discrimination. It comes naturally to us. We have judgment.
Correct.
Whether we realize it or not, we judge people on 100%. Looks, on actions, on the way they are, how they're speaking. So for you to be able to speak to people from all these spectrums, you must have really given up on judgment altogether.
You have to. That's the, I won't say peril, but that comes with the job description in general as a psychiatrist also. When I sit with other clients also, when people come and talk to me, I sit and judge them that, oh, this is what he's talking, oh, this is how much money he has, or this is what he slept with this one, or he done that. Then I lose track and I become biased and I believe, हाँ ये तो ऐसे time pass के लिए है, ये तो ऐसा कर रहा है. So, of course, I can't forget. It's a matter of perspective at that point in time.
Correct.
So, what I usually do is I empathize, take it in from their side. It could be the perpetrator, it could be the abuse victim, it could be the whoever I'm dealing with. That सुन तो लो क्या बोल रहे हैं. It's so different to have अलग अलग नजरिया के लोगों से देखना. मतलब it's so different to see that this is a perspective, that is a perspective, and we were as children brought up with just one track of thinking that this is the right and this is wrong. But you remember in the last one also I said that embracing the grace is the most important thing. That we have to find that in between, that there's no perfect person. There is no perfect person. उसने जो किया वो बहुत ही गलत किया, सजा काट रहा है, भुगत रहा है, जो भी है, उभर के अच्छा है, क्या आया तो अच्छी बात है, नहीं आया तो फिर वहीं पड़ा रहेगा. Victims को हम help कर सकते हैं because at that point in time, but even in them, that intense hatred, we have to teach them how to divert it or channelize it into something more productive gradually. You can't say कि पहले दिन से ही बस hate मत करो, कल से नौकरी पे लग जाओ, stitching करो, sewing करो, नहीं होने वाला है वो. But you have to learn to understand perspective. We can't judge. What are we going to get out of judging? Nothing.
Yeah, I think we should apply that in every aspect of life, right? Judgment doesn't really get you anywhere. Nothing. Accept all the grays. I think that's a great learning from this conversation, that there are so many perspectives, and just try and see someone else's. Correct. We are so hung up on our own. And I think that is the problem of it all, right? We are so hung up on our perspective, and we're so hung up on me being right or you being right. Correct. Tell me lastly, in your practice, what was the most powerful human story of survival you witnessed? And what did it teach you about the human mind?
There was this girl who comes to me, 17-year-old girl in the NGO that I work with, deals with victims of domestic violence and sexual abuse. And she starts narrating that I'm feeling very depressed, body pain हो रहा है, ये हो रहा है, क्या हो रहा है? I'm like, अच्छा ठीक है, अभी एंटी डिप्रेसेंट तो लिख दूंगा, बट जरा कहानी तो बता. नहीं नहीं, जाने दो, कुछ नहीं कुछ नहीं कुछ नहीं. So there are counselors who bring these patients to us. So when I asked the counselor, just give me a little brief, I just can't do something. And she said, doctor, you won't even believe what has happened to her. And this, and I said, no, I'll believe. Of course, I have to believe it. She's saying she is the third wife of somebody.
At 17?
At 17, she's somebody's third wife.
Okay.
His first wife is 22. He makes her pregnant, leaves her, goes to the second wife, gets her pregnant, leaves her, comes to this one, and keeps on telling each of them that you all are my best. And all three are pregnant. Of course, now two of them have had children. The third one now is the one who's pregnant, and she's come. And she's 17 years old and she's married because the mother said, ये लड़का बहुत अच्छा है, बहुत charming है, दिखने में बहुत ऐसा है वैसा है करके. And the moment she gets pregnant, the mother-in-law and everybody they throw her out of the house and they say, बस now you're of no use. जब बच्चा होगा तब देख लेंगे हम लोग, तब हम बच्चे लेने भी आएंगे. तो imagine as if that boy is some big shehzada or something like that. The way they, no, that boy has grown up in that family where his mother has just made him feel like he's the greatest or something, and he's doing nothing. He's an auto driver. That also an
He's
auto
an auto driver.
Yeah, auto driver.
And he's affording all these wives and
He's not
children.
affording. He sends them back to their house the moment they're pregnant. So they have the children at their house, and then the mother-in-law decides whether I want to keep this. So long story short, when the third wife, who the girl came to us, we were like, how did you even get married? What happened to you? She's like, no, I just found him to be very cute and nice and handsome and whatever it was. वो मुझे ये खिलाता था, वो खिलाता था, अच्छा कमा रहा था, दिन का 300-500 रुपया कमाता था, मुझे ऐसा करता था. So at that point in time, it hits you that 300-500 रुपया is, you know, when we talk and sometimes with our friends, you don't even consider all this. And then you're looking at somebody whose life, they're like so happy just getting. And we told her, then what do you want to do? It's 6 weeks, 7 weeks ही हुआ है बच्चे का, what do you want to do? So the mother was sitting over, the mother said, हमको तो बच्चा गिरा नहीं है, हमको नहीं रखना है, 17 साल की है, कौन देखभाल करेगा, पैसा नहीं है. One of the counselors also said, देखो बेटा तुम अभी 18 साल की भी नहीं हो, प्रॉब्लम आ सकता है ऐसा वैसा. So we said, we can't decide on her behalf. Let her talk. She's pregnant, this and that. So very clearly I said, see, what you need to do is take an informed decision. You can't take a decision which is just out of instinct. We told her, see, these are the problems of having the kid, these are the problems if you keep the kid. It's okay. We are always here to support you. Our NGO will support you. We've got lawyers, we've got everybody. You don't have to worry about anything. So she said, let me think. And after next visit when I went, she said, I'm going to keep the child. I'll only bring up the child. And she said, please teach me ways and methods to forget about this rubbish that's happened with me, make me strong and teach me ways in which I become independent and do something about myself. So then we spoke to the mother also and we said, see, let her take a decision. I know she's a minor, so she's not 18 also, but don't force. It'll play on your mind the rest of her life. And she was going to turn 18 in a couple of months or whatever it is. She said, मेरा पति मेरे को मार देगा अगर मैंने बच्चा रख दिया तो, क्योंकि ऐसा. मैं बोला अभी निकाह तो हो गया, शादी हो गया, सब कुछ हो गया, अभी what is the problem? She said, let them only decide. I said, okay. So we consulted the mother, we counseled her. The daughter decided to have it, the mother also. But then as she said that my husband is going to get very upset, that means the girl's father, they were asked to leave the house straight away. And she told the mother also that if you want to support your daughter, you'll also have to leave the house. So the mother and daughter then said, abhi humne decision to liya, abhi kahan jaye? So then we had to rehabilitate them. We had to find a place for them. See, and you can't rehabilitate somebody very far away from where their actual life has always been. You can't suddenly say कि तुम यहाँ रहते हो तो भी जाओ कि 150 किलोमीटर दूर कोई और गांव में रहो, कोई जानता नहीं. No, she wanted to live there. And the girl was very resilient. She said, I am going to make this child somebody. I am going to do something about my life also. I am also a child only still. It's not that I am. But she was not too fond of education. So then through our circle of people that we know, we got her one of those agencies that is either a RA का जो स्टॉल रहता है या तो Xerox का स्टॉल रहता है, Xerox machine का, ये सब. These are all government subsidized things that we are available once you turn 18 or 20, that if you've got certain qualifications. So we got her and a mother and RA का स्टॉल. उसमें पहले बहुत किचकिच हुआ क्योंकि उसमें बहुत कुछ करना पड़ता है ये सब चीज़ें करवाने के लिए. But finally, today she's 21, 22. The child is 3 years old, going to a public school. So happy the child also comes now for visits. Now we've made the mother a counselor in our NGO.
Oh,
so
wow.
she comes and she counsels everybody and says, अरे मैंने ये किया ना, अभी छोड़ो. And husband तो पता नहीं किधर है. And the girl also counsels and she comes and she's so happy about every time she comes. She's like, अरे बहुत मजा आ गया आज मैंने ये 4 लोगों की जान बचाई, इसको शादी से बचाया. सर ऐसा मत बोलो, it's not right. शादी से बचाया किसी को नहीं है, but at least given them the right direction. That so you can imagine a 17-year-old at that age.
Yeah.
She's pregnant 6 weeks, thinking this is the love of my life, and she's just been kicked out of the house and said, go fend for yourself. And everybody's telling her, drop the child, and she wanted to keep it and she kept it. What must have gone on inside her at that point of time to
Yeah.
be able to sustain that for 9 months, have the kid, go through everything, and it's amazing.
Resilience and strength.
Absolutely, absolutely.
The human mind has a lot of resilience and strength. It's about tapping into it, I think.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Wow, I think that's a very, very fascinating conversation. Deep, dark, but gives you a perspective on how we make our small issues very big issues. People really have gone through a lot, are going through a lot, you know. Makes you very grateful for everything that you have and you take for granted.
Absolutely.
This conversation has made me very grateful for everything we have and everything that's, you know, gone on for the last 4 decades of my life without even really stressing about these things, which are a huge part of people's lives. And people lose their mind, people lose their jobs, people lose their finance, people lose relationships because of incidents that happen in their life beyond their control.
Correct.
So, yeah, I would just like to say that brings a lot of gratitude. And I hope whoever's listening, firstly, identifies with the fact that we have a lot to be grateful for.
Absolutely.
And also not to bring so much judgment if something does go wrong with somebody.
Correct.
Before we end, I would like to ask you a question that I ask all my guests. If you were to introduce yourself to me without mentioning your occupation, your hobbies, your ethnicity, your nationality, with all these superficial markers that define us right in our day-to-day life, how would you describe yourself to me?
So I'll describe myself.
Yeah.
So the essence of myself is take it one day at a time, live and let live. Give as much as you can, it's okay. Let people take advantage, that's okay, fine.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rohan, for being here with us again. And it was a really, really interesting and intriguing conversation.
Thank you. My pleasure. Hi, I'm Dr. Rohan Bokdawala. As a psychiatrist, I sit with people in their most honest, vulnerable moments, and I've realized that we all carry more than we share and process. On the human thread, I talk about those unseen struggles and what it really means to heal together. Subscribe and join the conversation.